Welcome on into the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Sayfie here with Wright, college basketball analyst for On3 and the Wolverine and former Michigan basketball player. It's officially the postseason in college basketball, the best time of the year, according to some. I'm in that boat, although football season is rivals that, as does summer. But man, uh, super excited about the Big Ten tournament coming up here in Indy later this week, starting Wednesday night with the 11-14 game, 12-13 game. And then the NCAA tournament the next week, and it looks like Michigan is going to be participating, whether that's in Dayton or getting a bye to the round of 64. And that is because of a huge win at Ohio State on Sunday. Michigan wins by 6, 75-69. No Hunter Dickinson, which felt like that was it almost felt fitting before the game where it's like, they've been gearing up. This is the biggest game of the year, and they're not gonna have their best player. Kind of feels like that's how this year has gone. But Michigan battled despite that. Something you couldn't have said about this team, I think, earlier on in the year. They have more fight, and they showed that. Second half was outstanding. Devante Jones, I'm sure we'll talk about him, but he was fantastic. That was, in my opinion, his best game in a Michigan uniform. And just talk about that performance. I mean, a must-win game. We said must-win about some other games before that, but this was literally a must-win. No debating that, and they were able to get it done without Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah, I think the other must-win games was probably at Penn State and then home against Rutgers. Those are the two games that you had to have. And then we talked about this. Michigan had to be 6-4 in the last 10 regular season games, and that's what they were. And I said they had to beat Penn State, they had to beat Rutgers of those 10 games, and then go 4-4 in the rest, and that's what they did, and it's good to see. I'm happy for the guys, but if you really don't want to sweat, you have got to beat this Indiana team. um but they did something that a lot of people thought that they couldn't do. They went over 500 in a stretch that, if you look back, was pretty brutal. And being able to come through that, um, you know, and finish that off without Hunter, is just a testament to where this team is at mentally.
Yeah, and they've grown so much. I talk about the beginning of the season, November, December, when they were they'd fall behind and then they would just get blown out. North Carolina, Arizona, a couple examples of that. Um, but even in mid-January, when this team was 7-7, they had guys out with COVID, including Hunter Dickinson, and it was almost fitting that you kind of had those as bookend games, right? Because that was kind of the turning point of the season. You didn't have him, but there was a lot of fight in that Illinois game. It was a 2-point game with 6 minutes to go. They end up kind of falling apart. Trent Frazier takes over at the end of the game. He's done that all year. He's been fantastic. No real fault for losing that game without what you had. But then you grow so much throughout the season. You get yourself back in the NCAA tournament race. You get to this point, and you go 3-2 without your head coach at the end of the season, and without Hunter Dickinson capping it off. So it was almost fitting for kind of how bad and weird this season has been that they didn't have Hunter, but it was also fitting that they were able to finish it out without him. Devante Jones. I mean, we have to talk about him. I called it a masterful performance from him. 21 points, 9 assists, 2 steals, controlled the entire pace. The pick and roll was all Michigan had without Dickinson in the lineup, and that's all they needed. He scored or assisted on 11 of Michigan's 15 second half buckets, also hit free throws. Terrence Williams stepped up as well. But this game was, I think Anthony Broom tweeted it, this was the Devante Jones game. I've said a few times over the last few weeks he's had his best game in a Michigan uniform. But this one takes the cake for now.
He played very well. um he stepped up. I thought in the second half that, because Caleb and Eli were 1 for 11 at half. I remember they were 1 for 11 and 2 points combined between those two. And I was like, look, no Hunter, someone's gonna have to step up. I think Devontae is gonna have to be little bit more aggressive and assertive. And that's what he was. When he got to his right hand, he was either scoring a layup or he was dropping a dime to Musa for a nice dunk. Um, I just think that his poise throughout that game was so good. It was so good. Um Frankie came in again in the first half. He provided some really good minutes. And that is awesome for looking forward. That's awesome for him. And uh I keep hearing about their dynamic between Devante and Frankie is like big brother, little brother type of deal. I think that's awesome to see. But, being able, Devontae being able to do that on the road in those circumstances, and Frankie being able to see that, right? Because a lot of these freshmen, they haven't. A lot of freshmen don't really get a chance like that to watch and be in there, right? There are freshmen out there who aren't playing as much, who aren't on winning teams, who aren't battling for an NCAA berth, right? There are guys out there on not winning teams who are playing a lot of minutes, who are out there learning on their own. Frankie being able to like sit back and see Devontae pick apart the Ohio State defense, possession after possession, pretty much taking what the defense gave him, whether it was a little runner in the lane, whether it was getting all the way to the basket. Um, you know, even just showing Frankie like, hey, look, if you drive enough, they're going to back off of you to prevent the drive. This is why a jump shot is very important at this level. You need to go work on that. So, like something small like that is what is a program builder, and um, and that kind of carries the culture on from one person to another, and that's where these good programs come from. So I think within the game, he did his thing, but I think in the grand scheme of things and the big scope, I thought it was much bigger than that. And it's all about how the younger guys are able to see what he's doing, soak that up, and be able to do that themselves at some point.
Yeah, and a couple other notes from this game. Kobe Buffkin, a guy who we talked about, I brought that stat up on the podcast, I think 2 weeks ago, where according to Synergy, unguarded jump shots, he was shooting at 13% at that point. And I think it had gone down since then because I can think of a couple in the last week or so that he missed, including earlier on in that game against Ohio State. Then he hits a contested jumper with one guy at least flying past him and kind of hand in the face to hit that dagger. I believe that put Michigan up 7 with a minute and 13 to go.
Yeah.
And that's another sign of growth from a young guy as well. But it's also an outlier performance that we needed to see out of this Michigan team if they were going to make it to March. They got exactly what they needed in especially closing out that game late. Eli Brooks in the second half, after, as you mentioned, he was part of that. Caleb Houston, 0 for 10 for the entire game. He was part of that stat line. As you said, 2 of your starters go 1 for 11 combined in the first half. He came alive after the break, 3 of 5, hit 5 free throws as well. Is always battling on defense, of course. And that was big for Michigan. 2, Moussa Diabate diving to the rim. I think that's where he's at his best. And
Yeah.
uh, and that was just fantastic as well. So Michigan pulls out that win. That means they play Indiana Thursday, 11:30 a.m. And before we went live, you were lamenting that start time a little bit. It's going to be
It's
early, but
disgusting.
it'll
It's
be
so disgusting.
yeah. But day basketball is one of my favorite things. And then so it looked like for a while there, the most likely scenario was Michigan be in that 8-9 game and then play Wisconsin if they win, which would have been awesome. I was hoping for that to get a rematch between Greg Gard and Juwan Howard, who, by the way, is back with his Michigan team here. Now it's Illinois because they somehow got a share of the
I
Big
hate
Ten
Wisconsin, bro.
championship
I hate
based
Wisconsin.
on Nebraska going in. Is Nebraska the most dangerous team in the country right now? They go in and beat
Without Bryce
Wisconsin.
McGowens.
Yeah,
So they don't have
unbelievable,
Bryce McGowens, and they go into Madison and win.
insane.
And they were up. They were all right. Nebraska was down like 9 or 10 with 5:47 left to play. I want to say Wisconsin, Nebraska is 300th in defensive efficiency in the country. There are 358 Division One teams. They are 300th in defensive efficiency, And Wisconsin did not make a field goal in the last 5:45 of that game. They didn't make not one field goal. They had free throws like in the last minute at some point, but those are the only points in that time. And they didn't have Bryce McGowan's. They did not have Bryce McGowan's. And that is amazing. And then Iowa is up 15 at Champaign
Yep.
and blew the lead. So wild turn of events. But hey, look, you gotta be who you gotta beat. And it's gonna come down to you're gonna have to beat an Indiana team where you needed the bench last time on the road, and it's gonna come down to who wants it more. Indiana lost a tough game at Purdue. They were in control late in the second half, and they kind of just let that one slip away. Indiana is on the right side of the bubble right now, but at the same time, that is a fluid situation where both teams kind of put themselves in this, where you feel the winner of this game is in the tournament, and there should be a lot of action in this game. There should be a lot of energy in this game with both teams knowing what's at stake and knowing that it's not a guarantee that either are in the tournament, and they just got to win as many games as they possibly can at this point. Back in early February, I said they have to go 6-4 over the next 10 regular season games. I said win one game in the Big Ten tournament. They're there. They are there right now. Just win that one game. Everything else, in my opinion, is just going to be icing on the cake.
I would still bet they get in that first four if they lose this game, but leaving it to chance is risky. But that kind of feels like what this team has done all
Yeah,
season, where you leave it to the last day of the regular season in Columbus without your star
yeah.
to get it done. But I agree. You're going to see a hell of an effort from Indiana, in my opinion. And Indiana, so they're not a good offensive team. They're a bad shooting team. They play good defense, and that has kind of kept them alive. But in some of these bigger games, we've seen Indiana hit some timely shots, shoot a little bit better overall. They had the win over Purdue. I believe that was back in January at home. They stormed the court. You saw them almost beat Purdue on Saturday as well. They've picked up some wins. They have blown games down the stretch, and I think that a lot of that has to do with their inability to have a go-to guy to score and execute offense at the end of games. But this is an Indiana team with Xavier Johnson at point guard. I think he's kind of dangerous. He's athletic. He can get to the rim a little bit, and when you have Trace Jackson Davis, he's a good enough player to keep you in games as well. So, I guess just how tough of a challenge do you think this is going to be for Michigan? I agree with you. I think there's going to be bodies on the floor. It's going to be kind of a bloodbath out there, and what better way to kick off our Thursday mornings than with a game like this?
Musa has got to be good again. I think him. You saw what happened when he neutralized Keegan Murray at Iowa. What happened in that game? You saw what happened this past game when he pretty much neutralized Liddell. That's got to happen again, I believe, against Race Thompson. I think Race Thompson is an X factor. He's gotten so much better this year. He's much more of a threat at all levels. Neutralizing him is going to be huge. Trace Jackson Davis, he is someone who a bit more inconsistent this year than in past, but I believe that was due to injury early on. I think he had like a tailbone issue. But they do have a shooter in Miller Kopp
Yeah,
who kept Purdue in that game. And Miller Kopp, if you don't know his history, he was at Northwestern for a while. So I don't think he was a part of that group that went to the NCAA tournament. I have to check, but I
I would.
don't think
Yeah, my guess
he
is
wasn't
he
with
was a
that.
year after that because I think he's a true senior, but that could be.
Is he a true senior? Because the
Looking it up.
commitment is I have to because I'm a psycho. Class of 2018.
So that means I think he came in. I think it was 18 when
So it was 18, 19, huh?
it was 18, 19 would have been his
Was his
freshman year,
first
which
year.
was right after they went to the
Right after.
tournament in 18 because that was the year Michigan went to the
That was
title, I
Michigan's
believe.
year. Gotcha. Um, I've been having to like reference that year a lot because people are like, "When's the last time a Big Ten team over 500 didn't make the NCAA tournament?" I was like, Nebraska in 2018. They were 13-5. But it was also because the conference was absolutely terrible, and they had one good win the entire year. But yeah, sorry. Miller Kopp, good player. He's like that 3-4 guy, hard worker. He's about 6'7". He can shoot the ball. And I like their guards, like Parker Stewart, good shooter. Good shooter. He wants to take and make big shots. Um Xavier Johnson, I believe he's the transfer from Pitt, I want to say. Um Athlete, athletic. He is going to pose some problems for someone like Eli, where he's guarding those bigger guards and having to like keep them out the paint. He's a pretty good athlete. Indiana is going to bring their issues, but at the same time, Michigan is coming off of a victory against them, but we haven't seen Michigan win 2 games in a row in a very long time. And I think that's got to be something that they got to get out of in their head, knowing how to handle success a bit better.
For sure. And I think giving them a little bit more juice will be one, Jawan Howard, who is, I think, was going stir crazy probably at home, but at the
Bro.
same time, proud of his team on Sunday and in those wins they got. But him being back, I think, should add a little bit of that. And, I do like this matchup for Michigan. It's been a good matchup. I think it's been about 6 years since Indiana has beaten Michigan. I believe it was the 2016 season before Michigan. I think it was about in February of 2016, and then Michigan, of course, stunned Indiana in the Big Ten tournament in front of about 10,000 Hoosier fans at the at Bankers Life, which is now Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But um,
Baker's Life sounds way better, by the way.
it does. I missed the name. They keep switching it too because it was Conseco Fieldhouse before that. But um, I know we'll just call it Bankers Life on this show. But
All about the
let's
money, man. Yeah, all
it's
about
so
the
true.
money. Is that
Let's talk.
the Cam Chapman shot?
That was the Cam Chapman shot. Yep.
Damn. Okay.
So
Tough.
you have that storyline. Someone also made a great point that Michigan's always either the 1 seed, um, or the 8 or 9, and I think it's like 6 out of 8 years in the Big Ten tournament. So they're always playing this early game either on Friday with a bye or Thursday. So Michigan would play again early on Friday. If they win, they would take on Illinois. Um, let's take a look at the bracket. Those of us on YouTube can see it now on your screen. Um, Big Ten tournament bracket. So as we said, the Michigan Indiana winner takes on Illinois. Iowa moving down to the 5 with that loss last night to Illinois. Rutgers takes the 4 in the double bye. Wisconsin pushed out to the 2. Purdue at the 3 seed. Your thoughts, just overall, I guess, on Michigan's draw, that side of the bracket, and then any other takeaways. And I need to get a Big Ten tournament champion out of you as well.
Sure. All right. So looking at this, Michigan got a rough side, I think, because you have an opening game against a team who was trying to get back to the tournament as one. Two, you're playing an Illinois team that this staff has not beaten. And then right under you, you got Nebraska, who since the AD came out and said Hoiberg is
That's
staying,
right. Yeah.
Nebraska, I believe, is 3-1. The one loss was to Iowa, where they were playing Iowa very, very well. When Iowa was playing as like the hottest team in the conference. Then they play Iowa in that following game, and then you have a tough Rutgers squad who, they don't have the best metrics right now, but they are still trying to make headway to get to an NCAA tournament, and they've had some really good wins, but they do have 2 losses, one by like a 200 net team, then like a 315 net team. That is anchoring them like crazy. Without those losses, they're probably like top 25, top 30 on the net right now, which is nuts. Which like You got to take care of business in the non-conference type of deal. Um, but on the bottom side, I think it's wide open. You have Purdue, right? Purdue, in my opinion, is still the best team in the conference. The way that they've lost, like they've had
Heartbreaking.
four or
Yeah.
five games where the other team hits like a wild three in the
Un-
last.
Unbelievable week for them. They had the Michigan State, the Tyson Walker shot, the Chucky Hepburn shot, which won Wisconsin a share of the title. Um, and
And the
then,
Johnny Davis one, like right before, like
yeah,
the possession before that, just it's
yep.
just
And then
not.
they're able to beat Indiana. But it's been a weird, and I tweeted this the other day. Purdue cannot wait to get out of the Big Ten. I know this is the Big Ten tournament. Neutral court feels a little more open. And then once they're out of there, I think we can talk about that next week, especially when they get the draw. But I think Purdue is actually going to at least make the second weekend for once, it seems like, coming
Yeah,
up
I
here.
mean
Because
they're
I do think that team, once they get out of Big Ten play and they get on a 48-hour turnaround at some point, they're going to be super dangerous.
yeah. The thing with Purdue is that like they have not lost a non-conference game. They had the one game against NC State that they were down by 12 with like 6 minutes left. NC State's not a great team. They're like 11-19 or 11-20, or last in the ACC. But they were down 12 in that game late with 6 minutes left, and they found a way to go to overtime and win by like 9 or 10. But outside of that, I mean, they've been dominant. Like they beat a very good Villanova team. They have like they slaughtered UNC, I believe. Um, they have played very good basketball in the non-conference, and yes, you are absolutely right. I don't think they can wait to get out of conference play, and I just think Jaden Ivey is very good. Jaden Ivey is very very good, and I think him, being more of the on the ball guy and putting their point guards off the ball and their size is just going to be very overwhelming for a lot of teams. Like there's going to be some like poor 6'7", 6'8" guy uh, from like Idaho who has to guard Zach Edey and Trevion Williams, and it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be very very ugly. But um, they have been overall, in my opinion, they have been dominant. They've only been blown out once, and that was to Michigan. Um, Good teams don't get blown out, and they don't. They keep games very very close when they do lose. So I think they do have the recipe because they have the backcourt, and they have the shooting to get them through a lot of games. And Jaden Ivey is very capable of doing maybe not what Carson Edwards did because Carson Edwards was a freak, but he can impact the game as much as he did, in my opinion.
Okay, so are they your Big Ten tournament champ?
Oh, let's see.
Can pull it back up here.
All right, let's pull it back up. I, you know, Michigan State got a pretty good draw, in my opinion, to
Yep,
get to the semifinals because they have. Uh, it's going to be tough to beat Maryland 3 times and in back-to-back games. Like if you didn't
true.
watch these games, Michigan State beat Maryland at Maryland, one possession, late shot by I believe Malik Hall, with like a second left. Then last night, Michigan State was beating Maryland by 20 in two separate parts of the game last night, and Maryland got the game down to 10, back to 20. Then they got it down to one possession game. So I think Maryland is going to be ready for that game. I think that's, in my opinion, Maryland may be more dangerous than that Wisconsin game for them. But if they can get through Maryland, they're going to play a Wisconsin team um, who just lost to Bryson McGowan list Nebraska. They can win that game. I think they match up very well with them. Um, and then on the other side there, like they have a bunch of teams that they have beaten. Purdue, they've beaten. Ohio State, they've beaten. Um, so I think that their path is not bad at all.
Hmm.
That's why it would have been nice to win for Maryland to beat Michigan State last night, because
Yeah.
then now you have Michigan facing off against Maryland, and then Michigan will be facing off against probably Wisconsin, and then they're going to be playing teams that I believe they match up with well. But I just tournament setting, no prep. I just think Purdue has an up. Honestly,
No,
they
I
just
feel good about Purdue as well. They're my Big Ten tournament champion, and like you said, I think their side, when you look at it from their standpoint, I see what you're saying about Michigan State, but if you're Purdue, and then that's your semifinal, assuming you get past probably Ohio State, is Wisconsin, which I think is the weakest out of those top three, even though they got a share and they did, played outstanding basketball down the stretch to get themselves in that position.
mhm,
I feel comfortable about Purdue there, but I think a Purdue Illinois game would be really good in the championship game
yeah,
potentially. But obviously, long ways it goes to there. Uh, you know, and it doesn't usually work out. I feel like how we think it is. There's always going to be somebody. Iowa, by the way, my dark horse. They're still playing really good basketball, even though they kind of uh, not choked away, but missing 12 free throws is crazy. And lost that game against Illinois. Real
Oh my
quick,
god! Oh, Keegan
yeah,
Murray. Oh, they were down two. Keegan Murray gets fouled for three with
for
11
three,
seconds.
yeah,
It
and he
goes
missed
one
the
for
first
three.
two.
It
Which is
goes
just
1 for
unbelievable. And
3.
Chris
It's
Murray missed a bunch of
unbelievable.
free throws. Chris Murray, I think, went like 1 for 7 from the line or something like that.
Wow,
So
absolutely.
it was just like one of those weird games, and they just weren't able to close it out. And then even like you said, they got down, but they even had opportunities there to pull it out at the end and actually come back a little bit and win, but they weren't able to do it. Um, I know you have to go, so I just wanted to get this out of you as well. Big Ten Player of the Year. I think that's coming out today. So depending on when people are listening, it might be out. Who's your Big Ten Player of the Year? Who's your Big Ten Freshman of the Year? A lot of candidates for Player of the Year. I'm torn.
It's one of three. It's one of three for me. Um,
Johnny Davis, Kofi, Liddell, Keegan.
not Liddell. It's gonna
Okay,
be
so is Keegan your third there?
yeah. Keegan's the third.
Okay,
Um, gosh, I don't think it's been this hard ever. I
seriously,
think it's been this hard ever, and the fact that it's not a Michigan or Michigan State player is um refreshing a little bit. It's like, hey, the other conferences are finally, trying to catch up with the having good players. But it's so tough. It's so tough. Winning matters to me. So that would, even though Keegan Murray has been so consistent,
I know.
uh Keegan Murray's been so Keegan Murray's been the most consistent, and he has been the most impactful. Um, Player of the year. I think they're going to give it to Johnny Davis, because I
I
think
think so
that is.
too.
I think Wisconsin is like. Are they even 500 without him?
Probably not. Is Iowa
Hard to
without
see.
Keegan though? I guess Chris maybe
I think Iowa would be much better, because they've got Perkins, they've got Bohannon. I think
true.
they've got a system that is, that would exploit more touches for Chris, right?
Hmm.
And then Illinois, like Kofi's been so dominant this year, but he has had some, like in the last 3 games. I think before last night, I think in the previous 3 games, he had like 15 rebounds total. And for a dude like that, you expect more.
For
And
sure.
he's been like, in the last few games, he's been like it's kind of weird to see him get neutralized. So I just think they're going to give it to Johnny Davis, man. I think they're going to give it to Johnny Davis. Um,
But Keegan's your pick.
I would probably take Keegan.
Okay.
I would
And
probably
then
take Keegan, but
is
I
freshman of
think
the
they're going to
year?
give it to Johnny Davis.
I can live with that. And then freshman of the year, to me it's Branham from Ohio
Yeah,
State. I
Yeah,
mean, Bryce McGowan's like he looked like he was just going to be the guy, but Brandon came out of nowhere. He actually plays on a winning team. I guess Nebraska
winning
does.
matters. True.
Yeah, winning
Um,
matters. Um, Brandon
winning
McCray.
matters. But I had this conversation with Twitter. Um, who is your all freshman team? Because I think there are 6 that you can say should be on there. Those 6 are McGowan's. I'm going through the teams. McGowan's, Musa, Caleb, Hepburn,
Christie.
Branham, and Christie. Right? You got a legit 6. One of them's going to get left off.
It might be Christie. I feel like he's kind of struggled a little bit. He's been up and down, hasn't shot the three as well in the second half of the Big Ten season. But you're right. I could see them maybe splitting the Michigan guys.
Yeah.
Honestly, with the Michigan guys, if you're looking at especially the coaches or even the opposing media, depends on what night these guys saw him. Because and
True.
it's the case with a lot of freshmen. But it feels
Yeah.
like for Musa, I mean, if you're an Iowa writer, you thought he was the best thing ever in that first game, and if you saw him in that second game, you're probably like, what was
Ugh.
that? And then
Right.
and then Caleb, if you saw him in Ann Arbor, he's probably like freshman of the year.
In Ann
But
Arbor only, right?
right,
So all those awards come out today.
I believe so. I believe this afternoon.
Ooh.
It's
I'm
either
gonna
that
have
or
another
tomorrow. I haven't.
green room.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have another green room now.
every other
Shoot.
conference is today. I assume it's today. This is the first thing I did this morning though, so I haven't checked that yet. So
And aren't there games going on tomorrow?
I believe ACC starts tomorrow, Tuesday, because they end on Saturday, so they're a day ahead of the Big Ten. Big East might start tomorrow. That could be wrong though. But we're getting day basketball basically from noon until night, going forward here. So the rest of the
I love
week.
it. This is the best part of the year.
That's
Like
what I'm saying.
people love the tournament. I do too. I think championship week is one of the most fascinating weeks because you are seeing people battle in some of these cases like the last games that they'll ever play.
Yeah,
Like there are teams who are done right now because they've had games like happening last week. There are seniors that are done. My guy Ryan Peden at Ohio State was already named Illinois State head coach.
I saw that.
Because Illinois State got done on the 4th, I believe, and he was named like on the like that day or the 5th. Um, yeah, this is like this is where you see the tears flow and you start to see it's almost like reality TV, right? You're like seeing someone else's life just play out in real time, and how things are going to affect them for the rest of their life, and they're going to think about things, um, and have memories that will never be forgotten, and it's going to be an amazing championship week because there's so much parity right now in college basketball because you don't feel like there's that one team in any conference really outside of Gonzaga and the
And, and teams
WCC.
are old. Teams are
Yeah,
old this year too, with the extra
yeah,
year. So
yeah.
like
Teams are
a team
old.
that's not as good has a veteran presence. They might be going up against a more talented young team, but that could win out as well. And we saw last year even with Georgetown winning the Big East with Oregon State. We talked about them last week how terrible they are this year, but
Mm,
teams can come out of nowhere this week as well. I hate to bring this up, but we did see your life play out in real time in the Big Ten tournament,
true.
when you played. We'll leave it at that. But you're right. It is a do or die week for honestly most teams. Most teams are
Mm,
not making the NCAA tournament unless they win this weekend or if they won this past weekend in the mid-major tournaments. So it's that important. And I agree with you. I am a big fan of the conference tournaments. I think more than most people. Most people are like, all right, it's just something, for this weekend, and then we move on to the big dance. Big dance is everything, but this is a big deal too. So I'm excited.
huge. These
Um,
semifinal games and these championship games, like
yep,
it's like you're gonna see dudes lay everything out there, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
100%. So we're gonna get Ant moving. He's got a green room, Spotify green room with all the people that are following him on Twitter and obviously the Green Room community there. So follow Ant on Twitter at it's Ant Wright. Ant, I appreciate your time this morning. I know we kept you a little bit late, so hop on
No,
there,
it's all good.
talk about the Big Ten tournament bracket with your people there, and we will catch up probably when Michigan's done here with the Big Ten tournament, heading into what we believe to be a potential NCAA tournament berth. But follow us at thewolverine.com, $1 deal. Just $1 gets you an entire year of premium access there. So we'll see everybody there. Just $1.